Hi.
Hi, Sheroes and heroes. Today we want to talk about the hero. What is the hero, and how can we ourselves become more like the heroes we so admire? So, I'm Lavinia, and this is Bjarke.
Hi.
And together we created Hero Society, which is all about telling your hero's story and trying to become the hero of your own life.
Yeah.
And if you want to know more about Hero Society, just go to herosociety.com to have a look at what we're doing.
And there's a link in the description below.
Sure. So, what is the hero? At Hero Society, we focus much on the hero as the storyteller. You know, often the hero is like this this person, this muscular male for the most part, who goes out into the world to face the challenge of his life, to face one trial after the next, overcoming obstacles. And this is basically it. But in the classic hero's journey, this the hero undergoes a whole journey. It's like a circle. The hero's journey goes in circles, and it starts, like most stories, with the departure up here in the familiar world. So let's think about an example. For example, Lord of the Rings. Frodo in Lord of the Rings, he inherits the ring, and he gets this task to destroy the ring and to leave the Shire. So the familiar world, he leaves behind the Shire to go out and face his challenges. And for example, in Harry Potter, he finds out that he is a wizard, and this is where his story really begins. This is where he leaves the familiar world, the world of mundaneness, kind of, and gets enters the world of magic and trials. And so the hero comes from the departure and enters the next phase. This is the phase of transformation. So he crosses the threshold, and this is where the story really starts, where the story starts of his trials and errors, and where he goes through all the adventures he has to face to be the hero. And this is what Joseph Campbell calls the initiation phase, because it's also a kind of rite of passage, like the growing and coming of age story is always kind of interwoven in the hero's journey. So the last part is where he returns. The hero has to return to kind of the familiar world, and still not quite the familiar world, because he has changed. He doesn't end where he started. So actually, in a way, this is the hero's journey is not quite a circle, but more accurately, would be more like a spiral, because it's always ending in a way, but not quite, because the next journey is always about to start. But the point is that the hero always returns to impart his wisdom, to share his wisdom and the things he learned with others, so that they can become heroes too. So this is what we focus on, this storytelling part. And it really can be very small and mundane stories that inspire us. It's not always this big story, big adventure, like it can be something like going to the supermarket and helping someone, or the hug of your child that really made your day. Something like this, and we all have those moments,
Mm.
those small failures, those small successes, but we mostly keep it to ourselves, and this is what we want to focus on, to tell our hero stories.
Yeah. And that leads us to the next question, like what kind of traits or characteristics can we identify when we look at heroes? Of course, there are many different traits and characteristics that we can possibly imagine, but I think like some of the most important ones are the following four. So I'm going to go through like four traits that I think are really a base trait, so to speak, for a hero. So the first one is conviction. That means like finding your values, finding out what you really stand for. So the hero knows what he fights for. And sometimes he, in the beginning, he believes he knows what he's fighting for, but then in the end, it turns out to be slightly different, and that his understanding of his own values and what is he fighting for is his conviction, that he's always convinced that what direction he's going in, basically. The next trait is the courage, the willingness to face his fears. So a hero is always looking for that extra obstacle or that extra quest where he can develop himself, and maybe always going a bit outside his comfort zone to then also move along a deeper path, like where he's willing to learn and gain insight and help the world. Which leads to the next point, selflessness. Selflessness, which is actually originated from an Indo-Germanic word meaning protection. So in a way, you can say that the hero is a protector. And yeah, he's protecting people and the values. I think you had also some ideas about that, actually, about selflessness.
Well, I think this is a good point, that the hero is protecting the values and the values he stands for, and actually protection and selflessness is also a kind of value that it is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
So this journey is also about the hero trying to find out what is actually worth, what is worth fighting for.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doubts himself on the journey.
And also, like, I guess that he's able to then inspire others to follow in his footsteps. That's also a big part of that journey, like of selflessness, that the hero wants to transport this insights that he got on his journey to the other people, to his community, basically, when he gets back to his familiar world. And the last point or last trait is like the strength. So a hero, he takes up practice and he's willing to learn the skills that are necessary to support him on his journey. And like it could be like physical skills, fighting and stuff like this, or it could even be like mental skills, like developing his insight and like kind of understanding of the whole world. So that's kind of an inner strength, so to speak. And I think those four traits are really the basis of most heroes. And it's also interesting to think about how we as humans can strive to go for these traits, how we can incorporate them as habits in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably a lot more if you think about it. I mean, you can just think about the heroes you admire, and then come up with all the traits.
Yeah.
But if you think of the hero as a storyteller, and want to be like the hero, like the good storyteller that tells her or his own hero's story, then those traits I think are really worth looking at. But now let's have a little exercise, and I'm not sure if anybody is watching this live. So
but disregarding if you're watching this right now or later, you can do the exercise we'll talk.
True. So please, if you're on the computer, using the computer, open another document or just grab a piece of paper and answer the following question. Write down 5 heroes. Actually, this is not a question, so sorry. Write down 5 heroes that you admire, that you can think of.
Should it be heroes or
heroes, people you think of as heroes, people you admire, look up to, people you want to be like. They can be fictional. They can be people you know from your own inner circle of friends. It can be your colleagues. It can be someone you never met, maybe a speaker or politician. I mean, could be. And not
I mean, most admired people in the world are politicians, I think, actually.
Yeah, so just have a minute to think of 5 people.
5 people that you truly admire. So, and you did this list earlier?
I did this list earlier, yes, I think, and I actually also did it a year ago, and I noticed that the people, that the list changed. It's always changing, also depending on what I'm reading at the moment, I think, or what kind of course I'm doing, or
so that's interesting. It's a lot about what you're interested in the current life situation in a way.
I'm not really sure if it's the value that is changing, actually, just the people that represent the value for me. So
I did this also. I did this exercise today, and I must say that I did it really quickly. I just had a few minutes to do it, so I have this idea that I'm not satisfied with the list, but on the other hand, it's like the people that I could come up with very fast. I guess they are meaningful in a way. So.
Sometimes this is the best way to do it, actually, I think. So let me start.
Yeah.
So
probably list... all of you have your list now. Yeah.
So I don't. I have the list in my head, hopefully. So my list starts with Sarah Millican, the comedian. Don't know if you know her. She's really, one of a kind. Then I have Elizabeth Bennet, from Pride and Prejudice. I have Xena, Xena, Warrior Princess, don't laugh. I have Neil Gaiman and Buddha. So, what's your list?
So, on my list is Simon Sinek. He's a public speaker, persuasive speaker, or motivational speaker, actually. Then I have Steve Jobs, previous CEO of Apple. Then I have Vishen Lakhiani, current CEO of Mindvalley, a personal development company. And then I have also 2 comedians, like Michael McIntyre and Trevor Noah. And Trevor Noah is also a host of a night show.
Very male, I would say.
That's true. I was actually looking at the list and not wow, there's no females on this list, but it's not because I don't value females. I mean,
I hope so.
It's just the first people I came up with, so yeah.
I'm not sure if there aren't any. You can just write in the comments. No matter if you're just doing this right now while we are speaking or later on. We were just interested to know your list too.
So. Okay.
So the next exercise, next question is, what do you like about those people? So write down one or two traits or values for
Mm-hmm.
each person, and just one or two words. So
Yeah.
can be independence or
Like, why is it that you admire in those people? Or what is it that you see in those people that you can relate to?
quick-wittedness. Yes, that's it.
So, I don't know, can we move on already? Because I'm really curious what
Yeah, I
you
mean
wrote
you
down. Like,
can.
so what do you see in Sarah Millican? Like,
Oh,
she's a
I think
comedian.
it's her quick-wittedness, and I just think she's so funny. She doesn't have a. I just think she has a very extraordinary voice.
Mm.
Even actually very high pitched in a way, but also very
Which would normally
funny.
would be very annoying to listen to, but
Annoying to listen to, but in her way, she always reminds me of this of a kind of elderly auntie in a way,
mm.
um, who's talking a lot about sex very specifically. So probably not an auntie after all. But so this is what I admire about her. I like Xena and Elizabeth Bennet because of their strong female figures. They know what they want. They are also strong-minded, and I like Neil Gaiman, the author, because has a very nice, deep storytelling voice, very captivating. And Buddha, I put him on the list because I'm on a quest to become more patient at the moment. So it's patience most of all that I value about him, and the text about him, the texts about him.
the text,
Yes.
the
So
text.
what about you?
So yeah, so Simon Sinek is like this motivational speaker, and he always talks about the why. And what I like about him is that he has this course basically. Like everybody in his mind, everybody should know their why, and he's always talking about that in different settings. And because the message is so simple and so clear, it really gets through in a way, and that's really powerful. He definitely found his own wife. So, and then by the way, I picked all powerful white male, of course, on my list. Okay, I'll do a better job.
Very diverse.
Then I picked Steve Jobs because like not because he stole the technology and sold that through Apple and stuff like that. All these stories you probably already know about Steve Jobs, and probably he was a difficult boss to have, but he had this conviction in a way that everything should be simple for the end user, like for the people using the Apple software, it should be simple and it should just work. And he was so focused on that he's had this strong conviction that it was difficult to work with him probably, but it ended up being some great products at that time. Then Vishen Lakhiani, I mean, he also have this. I think like he has this conviction that everybody should have access to personal development, and it should not be something that you should pay huge amounts of money for. Like it should be accessible in a way to everybody around the whole world. And he builds this platform where it's easy to interact with people and find your favorite personal development course and stuff like this. So it's also because of his conviction. Then the Michael McIntyre, he's a comedian, and what I like about him is like he actually, if you notice his stand-up comedy, he always talks about like the mundane and ordinary life, but he has this. He's able to transform the very ordinary and mundane into something very funny, and that's amazing. I mean, like other comedians, have like special situations that they make funny or something, but he just talks about ordinary life and he makes that funny. So that's really powerful in a way.
I love him too.
And then the last one is Trevor Noah. He's actually a comedian, but he now hosts like a late night show, and it's because in a way, he uses humor to be authentic in a way, I think. So it's a satire, of course, but he's able to then like get news that you would probably not follow otherwise out to people, and I believe that he and his team are doing a great job of researching the stories and doing a good job. So he's actually applying humor and comedy in a way to be more authentic in the world and help the world, which is also a worthy cause.
And he actually makes your list kind of diverse, no?
Yeah, and Vision too is from Malaysia, so and Trevor is from South Africa, so a bit
actually
diversity.
You did a good job. Anyway, so the last point is to try to find a common ground. Try to find out what they all have in common, to just pick one or two values that you can deduce from your list. What do they have in common?
So let's give the viewers a moment to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to start?
Well, I made a whole list and I couldn't really decide. But
That's exciting.
But the most important thing for me at the moment is that they are the expressiveness. You see that especially in Sarah Millican and Neil Gaiman, and the way they tell their stories in a completely unique way that is completely unique and personal for them. I mean, and Michael McIntyre as well, actually. They all found their unique voice, a way to say it as nobody else could say it. And I simply love that, and it's the main trait of every storyteller. It needs to be expressive, but in a way that is personal to them. And then I also wrote down strong female strength.
Yeah.
Because this is really important, and patience. I just saw that in Buddha, so it's not really a common ground.
You chose him for his value, so it was the other way around, not because you admired him and then you found the value. You found the value, and then
actually it was the other way around.
I have to admire this guy because he wrote this text.
Yeah, but I think the female strength part, this quick-wittedness and independence, I found in all of those. Well, apart from Neil Gaiman, probably. So
he's also strong.
Strong female. So this is really important to me. But I think if I could just choose one, I would choose expressiveness. How about you?
Well, for me, I'll start with one, because I think that it's quite clear that the one combining everything is the conviction kind of thing, that they all have this high standard goal that they want to achieve. So, and they're really committed to do that, and they do it through their work. So they have found a way to integrate the core values and the conviction into their daily lives in a strong way. And they really live up to, or try to live up to, their core values.
Is this something you want to work on?
Probably. I mean, I have many projects right now, and I haven't found the common ground for myself just yet. I'm on that path, So maybe that's why it's inspiring to write a list like this, because I see that it's possible. They have done it, and they're living proof that you can find like a strong, high goal kind of
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And this is actually the purpose of this exercise, to find out. It's not so much about those people you admire, but what is important to you, to find out what are your own values. What is it actually that you admire about those persons, and there from derive or find the values that really matter to you. But
and then also, like, if I may add, like, then how, if those values, if you see something in those values, is it something that you're missing in your life, or is it something that you have but haven't found, like, is you still need to work on those? Maybe also, like, that could be kind of a next step exercise after this live video, that thing about, like, how can you make a daily habit out of integrating those values in your life.
Right. Yeah. So the purpose is not to imitate the people you admire, which is not really possible anyway, but to find your unique way to implement the values that you admire into your own life. So we're now at the end of this live session. That was longer than I had anticipated, right? And we will do that once a week at the same time.
Next time we will be on YouTube Live, but due to a small technical issue, we couldn't get it to work today, so we're on Facebook today. Yeah. Next time we'll probably, hopefully, be on YouTube Live. And yeah, I mean...
Sorry about that. We are just departed from the familiar world.
From the familiar world.
Cross the threshold, so...
But we will keep you updated. If you want to get noticed about our next video, then follow our Facebook page, or contact us. Sign up for our mailing list on our website.
You can do a lot of things. Just have a look at herociety.com, and remember to drop comments if you did the exercises, and also if you didn't.
And what you got out of it.
So see you next week, and see you soon.
See you next week. Have a nice week. Bye.
Bye.